at some lines and angles. Okay, so these questions you will likely see, and they can be confusing at first, but once you understand like a couple of basic rules, nothing here is really all that hard. So let's take a look at it. So, right, you have four angles here, right? A, B, C, and D. And what you have are two parallel lines, and then what's called a transversal, which is this line that's going across it, right? But that's how a lot of these questions will start off on the exam. They'll say, given two parallel lines and a transversal crossing it, and then it will give you like some angle and say what is some other angle equal. So what would be an example of that? Before we get into the examples, let's go over the rules that you need to know, right? First of all, adjacent angles add up to 180 degrees, all right? So that means like if A, say A equals 90, then D would also equal 90, right? Because 90 plus 90 is 180. A and D are adjacent here, right? And B and C are also adjacent, right? So B equal to 100, C would equal 80. Okay, so if adjacent angles, we also have something called same side interior angles, right? So in this case, A and C, they're on the same side of the line, right? So they're the same side interior angles, and B and D, same side interior angles. Don't worry about E, F, G, H down here. Like they may show it, but you never ask any questions about any of that stuff. Okay, so what kind of questions do we have? All right, say they told you this equals 60. And then from here, is they really could ask you about any of these other angles, and that would be fair. That would be a fair question that you should be able to get, right? So as we start, you could either work with the same side interior or the adjacent, and then go about finding angles B, C, and D, right? So if we said A was 60, adjacent would have to be 120, because 60 plus 120 is 180, right? And now we could use the same side interior angles to find the other two answers, right? Which if A is 60, then C would have to be 120, right? Because again, 60 plus 120 is 180. These two have to add up to 180. And for B, now we could do either, right? You could go for same side interior, 120 plus 60 equals 180. Or we could go adjacent with B and C. If C is 120, also, B would have to be 60. Okay, so that's a question that you will definitely see. A couple other things that you need to know are the terms supplementary and complementary, right? So if two angles, that always involves two angles. So if two angles are complementary, that just means they add up to 90. If two angles are supplementary, that means they add up to 180. Okay, and so you could easily get something like this. Like angle A and angle B are complementary, right? So already you're thinking, all right, that means they equal 90, right? A and B total 90. And then they say angle A equals 50, which is angle B. Okay, now it's fairly simple algebra, right? 50 plus B equals 90. Subtract 50 from each side. B is 40. Okay, so that's all you really have to do. And by the same point, if they said angle A and D are supplementary, and right away, A plus B equals 180. And again, they said A equals 50, doing the same thing. Substitute 50 for A down here. 50 plus B equals 180. Subtract 50 from each side, and B equals 130. All right, so to review, we have the two parallel lines and a transversal crossing it. Adjacent angles add up to 180. Same side interior angles add up to 180. Complementary angles means they add up to 90. Supplementary angles, 180.